Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to Comic Book Team Up, where RJ from the Fourth Age and myself, we just talk comics once a week. This week it's on my channel. Next week it'll be on RJ's channel, the Fourth Age. How you doing, RJ?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, we don't have a topic. We don't have a guest. We got nothing. So, people in the chat, if you want to ask questions, tonight's your night. Ask questions. Ask what RJ looks like. Maybe he'll turn his camera on. There you go. So, first off, you got uh, this isn't live yet. This is a sign up, right? For Fade to Blue.
Yep. Yeah. Sign up for Fade to Blue.
Cool. So you could check out that trailer. And Fade to Blue is set in the 30s in the Thomas Valiant world, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's a crime noir with supernatural elements.
Yes. That's exactly what it is. I like to say it's like Indiana Jones if it was done in film noir.
Oh, cool, cool. Comics team up, Avengers Temple. Yep, there we go. Comic book team up tonight. So, so what do you want to talk about? We got Creative Welshman in the chat. How you doing? He had to go to bed. What did he say? It was 1 o'clock in the morning. He's got a job interview, so he's going to bed. Ben Spar, voice actor. How you doing? And again, we got no topic. We got nothing. We are just totally spinning wheels. So let me ask you, RJ. We were talking a little bit before we went live. Do you think comic books have turned the corner and mainstream comics are going to get good again?
I really don't know about that, honestly, just because I don't think, I don't know. I thought for a bit that they might have turned a corner, but looking at a lot of the stuff that I see right now, they're just going to double down one way or another. I'm going to do a video, I think, of Mission Impossible. I went to see it there last Saturday, right? And it looks like an old style movie, like almost a 90s movie. But as I'm going to break it down, I think in the video, it's the fact that it's not an old style movie without agenda. It's an old style movie where the agenda is underneath again. They've gone back to let's put it on the back burner and make sure people don't see it overtly. And quite honestly, I think that's the best you're going to get out of mainstream comics or movies, television shows. Right now, that's the best you're going to get. And some people are going to fall for it because they're going to try to slink back into the shadows. You know, like that Homer Simpson meme where he goes back into the bushes.
Right.
And that's what they're doing right now.
I noticed that like all the Pride celebrations. I mean, like next week is June, and usually by now, like the whole they took the whole month for Pride, and it was almost like a month of preparing for Pride and then a month recovering. So it was almost like 3 months of this Pride stuff. And I'm telling you, man, the only thing I noticed was one DC comic, and it's got Green Lantern, which just drives me nuts that Alan Scott now is the face of gay comics in DC. For those of you who don't know why it bothers me, Alan Scott was the original Green Lantern, created in the 30s. You know, he was a regular tough guy superhero, and then somewhere in the 80s, he had two kids, Obsidian and Jade, and he had kids with the original Harley Quinn. Yes, there was a Harley Quinn before the crazy one in the comics, and he had twin sons, and they were blank slates. So somewhere along the way, somebody got the bright idea. They always made Obsidian like he went on a couple of dates in Infinity Incorporated. It would always went awkward. You know, he was shy. He was awkward around women. And then somebody said, "What if he was gay?" And you know what? The world didn't end. So he is officially the first canonically gay DC superhero, and nobody cared. Why? Because he was a blank slate. They didn't retcon it, and it kind of made sense the way it naturally evolved. And then they erased that character to make his father the gay. So they literally got rid of a celebrated, beloved gay icon hero to slap in the face of Alan Scott fans. So I don't know that this is one of my ranty topics. But anyway, there's only one like Pride comic. Remember last year, you couldn't escape. Like I didn't even want to go to a comic book store in June. You know, so I is it toning down? Like like by now you'd see Toyota ads and McDonald's, get a gay Whopper, but they don't have any of that anymore. Like you don't think the culture is changing, or you think it's
I think the culture is changing. I don't think that the mainstream entertainment is changing. For my comics right now, I go to Thinking Critical because he stays on top of these things, and he just is getting more and more upset as the days go by about what is coming out from Marvel and DC. Quite honestly, and I know Wes. He's a good guy. He's level-headed, and he's just starting to lose it on some of these comics. I mean,
yeah, I've been on his channel a few times. Yeah, he's a good guy. It because everybody's telling me that, oh, you got to get DC. DC is so good. And security guard at work was just like, yeah, I know you're not crazy about mainstream comics, but like this Doctor Doom, what's it called, Doom World or something like that? This is really good. You got to get it. So I'm too stubborn. I quit Marvel DC. I'm not going back. I don't care how good it gets, but I can't go back because then I have to buy all the issues that I missed. It's a fortune. So I'm crazy, but I'd like to see. I want the comics to be good. I want Captain America to be the Captain America that I grew up with, but I don't have the faith. But you said the Mission Impossible movie, you saw a hidden agenda?
oh yeah, I mean, it's not that hidden, but I mean, there are scenes in there that just should not be there. They're like 5-minute scenes that you could cut out completely out of this 3-hour movie, right? That make no sense unless they, yeah. It's the whole thing about the president and her president's son, and like the whole. I don't want to ruin my video for Saturday, but the whole movie is like a ticking clock, and yet we got these people crying and going, "Please, please," for half the movie. It's ridiculous.
I, I'm not an action movie fan, so I've never seen a James Bond movie, and I've never seen a Mission Impossible movie. I keep saying one of these days I'm going to sit and watch all the James Bond movies and do like a month long John's Long Box James Bond, But until that happens, I've never seen a James Bond movie. But like the Lilo and Stitch live action movie just came out, and I didn't see it. I'll take people's word on it, but supposedly the end of the movie is Lilo goes to Child Protective Services and the older sister goes to college, which that's one of the few Disney movies I actually saw in the movie theater. And I liked it. It was like this girl's like making a sacrifice to raise her family. Like she's going without so that she can take care of her little sister against all odds. Like you got the space aliens and you got the Child Protective Services and the people in the town are like, you can't do this. And she's like, I'm going to do it. And now the movie is just like, hey, put your child in the system and go to college, get a gender studies degree. It's better than your family. You've never seen a James Bond movie. Where were you? I'm not an action fan. Like people made fun of me because I only saw Die Hard a year ago for the first time. Talk about a movie with like no wokeness in it. The first Die Hard movie. I don't know. Are you a James Bond fan?
Oh yeah, we had like the box set on VHS before any of the new James Bond came out. I think it was probably when Pierce Brosnan was James Bond. We bought that set.
Because I was just listening to Chuck Dixon today, and he was talking about how like the new James Bond cries and he throws his gun away in one of the scenes. And I'm like, oh man.
I have not seen the last one. I refuse to see the last one.
I don't know. I think I want to read the original novel first before I see a movie. The Sean Connery one. They've been on when I was a kid. My dad would watch them all, so like I'd be playing with my toys while James Bond was on. So like I've seen them through osmosis, but I never, as an adult, sat down and watched them all.
I'm reading right now. I'm rereading Maltese Falcon, and it's because I'm doing the film noir stuff, right? For Fade to Blue, but it has extra stuff in it that you don't have in the movies. But it's like watching the movie at 1/10 speed. It's really a slow burn. I love it.
Yeah, it's funny. I just assumed that was a movie. So there is who is that? Who wrote the Maltese Falcon?
Dashiell Hammett, I think.
It is Dashiell Hammett. Okay, I got into a crime novel kick for a while, and I read some Dashiell Hammett, but I never read that. I'm trying to remember but it's gonna drive me nuts. But I bought a bunch of classic crime novels, and then Chuck Dixon talks about them every once in a while. I wrote down a list of noir novels to read. Uh,
Because
I'm reading Doc Savage for the first time, and I just ordered some original Shadow paperbacks. I've never read the Shadow either. I know that's not crime noir, but the original pulpy stuff. Are you interested in any of those?
yeah, I used to listen to a lot of the Shadow. Well, even when I was a kid, I listened to the so what is it, the radio plays. We get them at our local library, they're on record, right? But now that the internet is a thing and people just read the Shadow books, I listened to those a couple of years ago. But it takes a certain temperament depending on what genre of the Shadow you're going for. If I can't remember the name of the guy who's basically the person who wrote the most books on one character ever in history, has written them on the Shadow. He
Gibson,
just
right?
pumped them
William
out.
Gibson?
But yeah, they're again, uh, I don't know. I think I would rather read them than actually listen to them because I'm a very visual person, and even though I love listening to the Conan stuff online, the Shadow stuff, yeah, I think you have to read it.
Uh, you're, I found out of all of the pulp original, I put like the writers in like, did they influence comic books? Then I got to read them, and I put Burroughs in that kind. Or Howard rather. I find Howard the Conan books are really difficult to read, and I love Lovecraft. Do you find he's a tough read?
Yes, but again, that's why I like to listen to them more than I like to read them because my brother gave me some over Christmas with a bunch of comics. He actually gave me the Conan #1, which he shouldn't have spent that much money, but that's my brother from Marvel's Conan #1.
Oh,
And he gave me a bunch of the paperbacks too, and I started to read them, and that's I kind of sort of trailed off to read the Maltese Falcon. But the reason why he's so hard to read, I'll tell you right now, and we discussed this before on this channel, it's because he writes in a Celtic way.
yes, you were talking about that. Yeah, explain that because I'm sure my viewers don't know what you're talking about.
Well, Celtic mythology is unlike any other mythology because if you're used to like Greek or Roman mythology, it's very logical, and they have a logically based system of telling a story, beginning, middle, end, all that kind of stuff. A Celtic story is very much based upon almost like growing things. If you look at the Book of Kells, I always say, look at something like the Book of Kells, where you see those knots, the Celtic knots all over the place. That's the way a Celtic story is actually told, in a knot. You go in and out of the story, you go in and out of characters. You start with one character, you might end up 5 characters different by the end of the story. You never understand what happened to the first character because it just twists and turns, and it's like organic thing and ends up in a location that you have no clue where this was going when you started it. And that's Celtic mythology for you. And even I find, and as I used to read the Celtic mythology kids, when
We're losing you, RJ.
oh, I used to be I thought out loud to my kids, and I had to do it with an Irish accent because it doesn't work any other way. It just doesn't.
RJ, we're losing you. You're roboting out, and like every other word is fading.
Okay, well I'll see. You go ahead, John. I'll listen for a bit.
Oh, it sounds good now. So finish what you're saying. Right now, all of a sudden, it's good again. So you're saying
Oh, I was saying that when I used to read the Celtic mythology out loud, sometimes you got to read it out loud. You got to read it with almost an Irish accent because even with the tilt in the voice and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't work. You like the sentence doesn't work in your brain unless it goes in an Irish tilt.
it's funny that you said that because my grandmother, May McNally, she spoke Gaelic, and when she told the story, it was just like. Do you remember a TV show, Dave Allen? Do you remember the Dave Allen show? It was on after Benny Hill when I was a kid, and Dave Allen would just sit in a chair with his cigar and a drink and tell stories. And man, did my grandmother love that. And he would just tell a story and whine, but he was fascinating. He was great. My grandmother would tell a story, and she'd be like, "Well, Johnny, I went to the store the other day, and I saw a dog, and the dog had red, and it had a red collar on, and then back to the like she would just wander, and I just thought she was a crazy person. You're explaining to me she's just a Celtic mythology person. She's
Yeah,
just
pretty
always,
much.
wandering. But that's like the stereotype. You talk to an Irish person, and you know everything about everybody except the actual story. It's funny because out of all the mythologies, I started reading. Egypt is tough for me, but Greek and Roman and Norse mythology, those are just great stories. But Celtic mythology, I have such a difficult time keeping track of it. Even Japanese and Chinese mythology, I can understand better. You know, but do you ever read? Do you ever read Finnish mythology, the Kabbalah?
I read the Norse mythology original, which is the Prose Edda and stuff like that, but that's about as close as I would come.
The Kabbalah, it's just like you could tell it must be written like the Homeric epics because it's like they must it must have been an oral tradition that they wrote down because all like they'll repeat whole paragraphs. You know what I mean? And then so it must have been like a way to remember the story, like go on autopilot while you think. But that was a chore to read. Yeah, and then they use words that I look them up online, and it's just like, yeah, this word we don't know what it means, but it's a big deal in the Kabbalah. So it's like, okay, I'm trying to learn it from context, but I don't know what they're talking about.
Well, if you look at Roman or especially Greek mythology, they do have the same in like the Odyssey and the Iliad because they were oral tradition. You'll see repetition of certain lines over and over and over again, which is supposed to be a memory trigger for someone who had memorized this entire thing.
Yeah, I think the same thing would come out. Celtic mythology is hard to study because much of our stuff was not written. Yeah, yeah. I mean, Homer, what was it, recited for 800 years before it was written down? Like, do we remember? Do we know when the Iliad and the Odyssey was actually written down for the first time?
Around 800 BC is when Homer was supposedly there, but when it was written down for the first time, yeah, it was several hundred years at least.
Now, is there any historical evidence that Homer actually existed?
Uh,
Is he
Besides the fact that, well, a lot of people say he's a compilation of different people that
right?
actually made up the story, but that's about it. Um, Considering the fact that they actually found physical evidence of Troy existing, I still say to myself, yeah, Homer was a guy.
Yeah, I'll believe he's a real person until well, we can't prove that he didn't exist, right? I mean, but yes, Ilium, right, is the accepted location of Troy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. They found the walls there, that Homer would describe. I don't know. Now we're getting into but Celtic mythology. Back to Celtic mythology. My biggest problem is I can't pronounce the words. I can't pronounce the names, and like I have like a if people watch my channel know I'm big on names, and if the names if I can't pronounce them, if I can't say them, I kind of don't have a connection to the character. Like even the Japanese names, I could pronounce them. They may be long and everything like that, but they make a phonetic sense. But the Celtic, like especially like Welsh, man, Welsh is like I still think that Welsh is a joke, that it doesn't really exist and they're just playing a joke on everybody else on the planet, because they'll have like 12-letter words without vowels in them, W's and Y's, and I don't know. I like what Eric says. Pronouncing the Irish is like trying to walk straight while you're drunk. My grandmother used to speak Gaelic, and I for years just thought she was making stuff up. It makes no sense to my ears. Do you?
It's really funny because when I was learning Gaelic, they used the actual English alphabet to teach the Gaelic. They didn't use the Gaelic alphabet, which is what your grandmother probably learned it on, which is entirely different. And there's a lot of very interesting consonant. You get a double consonant and things like that, which makes a vowel sound, all that kind of stuff.
Like, how would you pronounce these three names?
I wouldn't like I'm like you. I usually flip through the index at the back and say this is how you pronounce it, and I have to do it every time I read the story.
Like,
But
would you say Siobhan?
yeah, we Siobhan, but I'm not
Sorry.
entirely sure about this. And Teg, but GH again is one of those. What do you call it? It's not a diphthong, but it's a vowel combination that makes a different sound than you would get in English. So it would be H.
I remember my friend Sean spells his name Sean, and it always drove me crazy. Like that scene, like I used to call him Scene just to be a jerk. I'm like, spell your name correctly if you want me to pronounce your name correctly. Hail, Ollie. Hope you're having a blessed day. Thank you, Zach Tam. I got my blessing, and that's all I need in life. Has anyone done a story where all the idols myth coexist maybe in their own planes of reality and they use Earth as a battleground? That's a good, that would be a great comic, you know, all the gods battle. I know of a board game called Battle something, God Battle, where each player is a pantheon of their gods and you set your champions against the other. It's a fun game.
Yeah, Zach Dan, I was going to say the same. There is American Gods. Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny. In college, I took a Tolkien class in college. And man, nothing destroys the fun of. I love Tolkien, but when you're assigned reading and you have to get it done by a certain time, and I'm a slow reader, man, I hated Tolkien that year. You know, just because I was told I had to read it by a certain time. But I remember I sat next to this kid, and he was this tall, skinny blonde, and he had this chain around his neck with a little hammer. I was like, oh, cool, a little Thor hammer. He's like, yeah, I worship Thor, and I was like, ah, that's funny. You know, and he's like, no, no, really, I worship Thor. And I just was amused by this. I'm like, so you worship a Viking god. Like, why would you worship Thor? Because you're not going to die in battle. I said, you have to go. The only way you could go to heaven or Valhalla is to die in battle. I said, you're just like a wussy American guy. You're going to die the straw death and go to hell. And he just started laughing. So we got friendly. But I remember I wrote an article for my school newspaper about the new American pantheon. You know, like if we're gonna go back to pagan times, let's at least make up gods that would help us. And I remember one of the gods was like infallible prophylactics. One of them was like the god of interest-free student loans. You know, things like that. And I'm like, these are the gods that we need in America. We don't need a battle god anymore. Like, why would you worship Thor if you're going to reject? You know, this was in my atheist days. Like, I can understand rejecting mainstream religion, but you know, in 1990s America, you're not going to worship Thor. You know, we don't need any more rain. We don't need any more thunder.
What's the question that they answer now is how many cows do you have to sacrifice? How many cows and cars do you have to sacrifice to the gods' weather in order to affect climate change? See, that's how many bugs do you have to eat?
There you go. Yeah, we have to appease Zeus. My family had to change the spelling of our name so people could pronounce it. Oh, really? It's an Irish name? I'm not going to ask you your last name. American gods are like Native American. Well, yeah, the Native American mythology. Hey guys, hey Jolly. American Gods is a comic. Yes, American Gods is a novel written by Neil Gaiman, everybody's favorite sex pest. It has a TV show too. Yeah, I bought a copy because I love Sandman, and I bought a copy of American Gods, and it just sat on my shelf for years. A friend told me to read it, and now all this Neil Gaiman stuff came out, and I just can't bring myself to read it. And I didn't watch the TV show because I wanted to read the book first. Now I'm probably not going to do either. I just ranted for a long time, RJ. Well, I had a question to ask you, and I got distracted by the chat.
Zach says Pantheon of Uncle Sam, Columbia, Johnny Appleseed. Yeah, Johnny Appleseed. That'd be funny.
Oh yeah, it's funny. The Pantheon of Uncle Sam, Columbia, Johnny Appleseed. Just kidding. Don't. I was thinking of like a. It's fun. I wrote a story in college where John F. Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe were like they were sacrificed and elevated to like spiritual godhood. You know, they were the. Do you know the ceremony, the sacred marriage ceremony, where the king and queen are sacrificed? You know, to ensure good. Like they basically pick a man to be the king, and he lives the life of Riley for like a year, and then they sacrifice him with like one of the temple priestesses. You know, and the sacred marriage. They basically have like public copulation, and then they're killed after it all. But I was thinking, what if John F. Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe were the the modern day equivalent, and that blessed us with like 30 or 40 years of American prosperity, and we have to keep. So then I was like thinking, who would have been the during the Gilded Age, who would have been the 20s or a direct result of not performing the sacred marriage. But I threw that idea away. Too irreverent, I guess. My dad changed my last name to be close to the original version, but it cost me and my family so much because legally my name is different than that's difficult. That's difficult. I tried watching Sandman on Netflix. I couldn't stomach it. Every other person was gay, but the line in the sand was the fight between Dream and the Dream was interesting. That fight was interesting in the comic, but yeah, my problem with the Sandman movie TV show is I want my comic book adaptations to be as close to the source material as possible. And the Endless, the seven beings, they're not Caucasians. They're white and black. They're a dichotomy. Their skin is alabaster white, not like a Caucasian's. Like I don't have white skin. I have whatever you want to call it, color skin. But they had white, like alabaster. And then their hair and their eyes and their clothes was black. Every one of them. So like death was also life. Dream was also the waking world. Destruction was also design. The light was also delirium. Things like that. And that to me was kind of brilliant. And then when they made the TV show, they cast a black woman to be Death, which is fine, but put her in. Because if you had cast a white woman, I would have wanted her in this white alabaster makeup. And I said that to Neil Gaiman on Twitter, and he called me a racist. I'm like, dude, do you even understand your characters? They're a dichotomy of literally black and white opposites and everything. To cast a human-looking person as this personification of death, and he was like, "Well, she was black in the comics." Yeah, in one issue out of 75, there was one story where she was a black woman. She was also a white woman, and she was also an Asian woman. So, are you going to change her appearance every time she shows up? That would be interesting. No. So, I just got mad that Neil Gaiman calls me a racist. When I'm saying like I want my comic book characters to look like my comic book characters. I don't want Superman to look like a midget from Poland. You know what I mean? Like I don't know why I said Poland, but you know what I'm saying? I want Superman to look like he stepped out of the comic book.
Here's a good question. I don't understand why these people have to ruin, like you're talking about Green Lantern and all this kind of stuff, right? It's like, how come they haven't actually done anything with Shade the Changing Man? I hated that comic when it came out from Vertigo because I like Shade the Changing Man from Carlton. But I bought the entire thing because it was in like a dollar bin, or no, it was probably 25-cent bin at that time. And I struggled through reading the entire thing. But here you have this character who goes from male to female and has to, deal with the different body shapes and all that kind of stuff and deal with being a different gender. It's like, why in the world would they not take that character and make it into something that, make it into a television show or whatever? If they're pushing this junk all the time, why do they got to ruin Alan Scott? Why don't they just take Shade the Changing Man and make it in? I don't understand.
That's a good point. They have characters because to me, they Shade the Changing Man doesn't have a built-in audience. They not only do they want to push an agenda, but they want to be lazy about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're going to turn Superman black, but Icon already exists. Yeah, but nobody knows about Icon, so that doesn't push my ideas. Superman has a bigger shadow. Superman casts a bigger shadow, so of course we're going to mess with Superman. We don't want to spend 30 years building up Icon. The black Superman from Milestone Comics. We don't want to do that. That takes too much work. We're not only are we subversive, we're also lazy. Because like Shadow, a Starhawk from the Guardians of the Galaxy, the original Guardians of the Galaxy, there's a perfect character to do all this gender nonsense with, because he's a male and then he transforms into a female. He's both. You know what I mean? And it was cool in the comics. He was a weird character, but he was cool and it worked, and that was the original concept. And it's funny because they messed him up, and now Sylvester Stallone is playing him in the cameo that he showed up. You know what I mean? It's like now you can't do Starhawk, gender identity guy, or Cloud from the Defenders. If you remember, Cloud was this female with like her costume was basically a cloud around all of her dirty bits, and then she would turn into a cloud, and then when she reformed, she was a man, and then she would turn into a cloud and then reform as a female. And the funny thing is, Iceman was dating her, and then when she transformed into a male, he was like, "Whoa!" and broke up. And if he was always bisexual, wouldn't that be the perfect love interest for Bobby Drake? Which, but these people don't know these stories because they're not into comics; they're just into agendas. Zach Dan, the physical description reminds me of one Star Trek episode where they meet the two aliens that look similar, but one was white. Yeah, the Frank Gorshin episode. Frank, I'm guessing because the show showing super being that could change perfectly shows how superficial they count. Yep, that's pretty good. I heard the MCU that making Professor X and Magneto black. I was hoping they would axe it and give a break after the Avengers movie, but Doom's. Yeah, I also heard that the higher ups are getting tired of Kevin Feige. That they're like, we're bleeding money. So, to be honest, the MCU could do whatever they want because I'm done. I'm pretty hardcore when it comes to that.
Yeah, and they're saying basically Thunderbolts is going to make less than the Eternals because it's getting blown out of the water right now by Mission Impossible, right? And the Lilo and Stitch. Like no one's going to see it anymore. It's not even going to reach the level of Eternals for the new Avengers.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I said this plenty of times. If you went back in time and told me, you know what, there's going to be an Ant-Man movie, because RG, do you ever have a character that you just get possessive of? Like, that's my character. And you don't like it when other people are fans of that character? You're like, you can't stop them, but you can get mad at them. But Ant-Man was like that. I like Ant-Man because nobody else liked Ant-Man. And now they made an Ant-Man movie. And the first movie was good. The second movie was okay. And then the third movie, I didn't even see. Like, if you had told me that as a kid, there's going to be an Ant-Man movie, I'm like, no, you're not. And then like, oh yeah, by the way, there's going to be a third Ant-Man movie that you don't even want to see. I'm like, I don't believe this. I don't know.
On some level, I suppose, but I mean, it's like the fact that I quite honestly, I told the story before, but I'm not sure what X-Men movie it was, but when Jean Grey got possessed with the Phoenix Force and just walked out into the air, is like I got teary-eyed because like I never thought as a kid I would ever see this on the movie screen, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't care anymore. Like I mean, they could put out another X-Men movie right now. I probably won't go see it. I don't know.
Yeah, I it's funny because I finally saw that Deadpool and Wolverine movie. Did you see it?
No.
Everybody's like, "Oh, you got to see it, John. You have a comic book channel. You got to see it." So I was like, "All right." So me and my wife, we watched it here, and I hated it. There was a couple of cool scenes, but it wasn't a movie. It was just cameo the movie, cameo the movie, cameo the movie. Oh, look at this. What if Johnny Storm shows up? Chris Evans plays Johnny Storm. Okay, what if Jennifer Gardner's Elektra again? What if Wesley Snipes is Blade again? That's not a movie. And Wolverine is the cornerstone. We got it. It was like the first draft of a movie of what you expect Deadpool Wolverine. It was just superfluous cameos and nonsense. I just hated it. I thought it was bad. There was a couple.
As I said before, I really don't like Deadpool as a character at all. The only thing I like about Deadpool is that my New Mutant is now worth like $700.
Yeah. Kevin Feige never got credit for anything. We thought he was the head story guy for cards. Yeah, just like that. We all thought he was the hero, and then the same with who was it that did Star Wars? Now everybody hates him. Filoni, Dave Filoni. He came in and rescued Star Wars, and now everybody wants him out. I'll say Deadpool 3 got praised for being better than the other. The first Deadpool movie was good. As much as I hate Deadpool, the first one was good. The second movie was awful, and the third one, it was better than the second one because just it was cool to see Hugh Jackman as Wolverine in a full-on Wolverine costume, but it wasn't a movie. It was like a bunch of skits, it was like a string of pearls, but if that makes sense, you know what I mean? It was snippet, 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 snippet. Okay, it's over. Yeah, I will say the first Deadpool movie was actually a good movie. It had a story. It had a beginning, middle, end, and a conclusion with characters that you like. Second movie was awful. That kid, that fat kid, that just talk about anti charisma. It doesn't help that one of the Deadpool actors caused some trouble on another movie. Oh, I don't listen to any of the Hollywood gossip anymore. Hollywood could burn down as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's one of the things I was going to talk about for Mission Impossible is like, okay, it wasn't a bad movie per se. I mean, it's entertaining and all that kind of stuff, but I'm looking at it and then I'm looking at, let's say, the first Mission Impossible, and I'm saying to myself, how in the world did we downgrade the ability of people to edit or to do sound design or to pick a good score? I mean, it's like those people that could actually put together a good movie have all died and got replaced by people who uh, have half the knowledge that their predecessors did.
It's funny that you say that because even in my job in construction, we're doing a lot of like prefab stuff. Like, but my job now, I'm in charge of like material handling. So like the trucks will come, and we have a really poorly designed loading dock. So I got to get it off and do it. It's pretty stressful, like in short bursts. But we get all this prefab stuff, and then I bring it to the floor, and then the guys just install it. And I'm watching the apprentices just install the stuff. But we used to bend the pipe. We used to get up on the ladder, take the measurements, literally do trigonometry to find the angle of the bend. And if you bend it over here, the center of the bend will be over here, so the pipes will fit properly and things like that. These kids don't know. Like, you went on any old job site and you saw pencils on the sheetrock of doing these little math problems to figure out like the literal like sine, cosine, tangent to bend these pipes properly. These kids don't know how to do that. Even at construct, like, how are these kids gonna know how to bend this pipe? Why? Because now you got some guy with a computer program in an office. They're designing it, and they're getting these old timers who are hurt. So it's a good for these old timers. They go to this warehouse and they bend these pipes under perfect conditions, and they know how to do it. And then they put it on a truck. They send it miles away to my job site, and the apprentices are just picking it up and screwing it in. It's like, who's teaching them? In 20, 30 years, there's going to be nobody to bend these pipes, So yeah, the same thing. Look at Marvel Comics. These guys don't know how to edit. How many typos do we see? Bad cover dress, bad trade dress. Some of these Marvel Comics just look like amateurs. Editing implies criticism, which is patriarchal. Yeah, you can't tell. Everything's good. Everything's good. You can't criticize anybody. The hero's journey is a trope, but we're too creative to fall for that. What do you think about the hero's journey? Is it like people like Chuck Dixon say, forget about it, just write a good story? Do you feel like the hero journey is done too much?
I always say that, quite honestly, the hero's journey is just a modern take on the thing that I always talk about, which is the virtues. It's someone, he just decided to take the old Aristotelian way of talking about a story and just sort of put it into modern language. That's all he did.
I feel, because I was listening to somebody talk about their comic today at work. I had my headphones on, and I was listening to YouTube. I'm not going to mention who. I'm not here to hurt anybody's feelings. But they're like, yeah, my comic is the classic hero's journey of the superhero, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's what you say to sound more intelligent or to lend gravitas to your story. I've never said the hero's journey would talk about my comics because I'm not too intelligent. So I don't want to, you know what I mean? But like, this comic is a classic hero's journey and blah, blah. It's like, what does that mean? It's something that people say, and it doesn't mean anything anymore. Like, of course, it's got to be, every story's got to be like a journey. You got to get from point A to point B, like maybe not literally, not in a car driving on a highway, but like emotionally or a payoff. It has to be a journey. So it's just one of those things people say because I guess they feel like they should say it.
Well, I think it's a combination of the two things we've just been talking about, because these people don't actually have the training. They just use buzzwords. And that when I used to go through these Marvel podcasts, yeah, they would say that's exactly what they would do. And it's fake it till you make it, right?
Right.
But they would never actually learn the skill. Never.
Yep. You're absolutely right. Yep. Yes, we're the team up. we're the comic book team up over here. He's got the Valiant Universe, Fourth Age Comics, and I got Longbox Comics, and we're teaming up. I'm gonna say, yeah, everybody's telling me to check out the Martian Manhunter comic, to the point where I am tempted to go pick it up. But I'm not a fan of alternate takes on characters. Like, you know, RJ's new comic is going to be an alternate take on Thomas Valiant. It's like I don't want to read that. I want to read Thomas Valiant. Make that good. Like,
Same reason why What If never took off as a comic. It was like,
right. What If was a good example, RJ. Perfect example. Like, What If was fun because it was just, we knew it was a throwaway take. Now that every What If story is a valid comic book, and it ruins the What If. Like, when you bought What If, you knew you were getting something crazy, and usually they were sad. Oh man, some of those What If stories are heartbreaking because they could take risks and they could do dangerous stuff. Because they knew it was never going to get revisited. They knew it was a throwaway take, and that was kind of the whole appeal of it. But now, like, every multiverse is, now there's Spider-Man and there's pregnant Spider-Man woman, and there's, to me, it dilutes the character. And I don't want, each writer to have their pet Spider-Man. I want Spider-Man to be good. So I don't want to read Absolute Batman. I don't want to read Absolute Superman. Okay, Absolute Batman is he blonde? Like, he's a blonde guy who's not poor. He's not rich. He's a poor guy, and he works for the circus, and he fights. That's not Batman. That's another character just called Batman. Call him another name. But they want the gravitas. They want the shadow that Batman casts to sell these books. You know what I mean? It's like a safe way to make a new book. Like Superman now, he was a slave on Krypton, and he came to Earth, and he's fighting to fight oppression and the upper. It's not Superman. It's another character. Just have another character from another planet. But no, we want to sell you this idea because Superman has his fan base, and we want to propel this new idea on somebody else's hard work or a character's work. I don't like that.
It's like the whole Katy Perry, I'm an astronaut now. It's like, no, you're not. Doesn't matter. You want to put the Superman symbol on your chest? Doesn't mean you're Superman. Sorry, doesn't.
That's good. I always tell my dad the biggest problem with modern first world countries is we focus on making it easy, and we confuse the easy way with the better way. Yeah, I agree. Sometimes you got to make an effort. Sometimes you got to, and I'm a lazy person, and sometimes you got to make an effort. Absolutely.
I always go back when someone says something like that to the line. What is it? Benedict XVI. He said, "This world offers you comfort. You weren't built for comfort. You were built for greatness."
Not only that, I think we are built for conflict. How long? I know this is like a theological versus evolutionary concept, but like, can we agree that the human race is older than we think it is? And for most of the human history, we were struggling just to get food on the table. The last 100 years have been so incredibly easy. Like, as bad as things are right now, this is still like the best time in the world to be alive, and in the best country in the world to be alive. Like, things, even the homeless people are fat, and I think we are just hardwired for conflict. We are hardwired to fight that saber-toothed tiger. We are hardwired to, raise 12 kids because 7 of them are going to die. We are hardwired to, keep one eye open in the middle of the night because that creature is going to eat us, kind of thing, or the soldiers from the next town over are going to come in and steal our women in the middle of the night. And now we don't have any of that. So we have depression and anxiety and, food allergies, it's stuff that shouldn't exist.
I think I'll be politically incorrect here. Absolutely politically incorrect for a minute here, John. Sure. This is what you're talking about reminds me of the fact that why do you have so many Native Americans that are big fat guys? Why? Because even the fact that they were hunter-gatherers for, another 10,000 years besides what Europeans were, like 10 to 20,000. So they can't actually process food the same way Europeans do because they're hunter gatherers. And every time there's an excess of food, it's going to get turned into fat because hunter gatherers' bodies turn it into fat because they know there's a famine supposed to come after that. Right? It's like, yeah, when you look at the physical structure of different peoples, yeah, we are built to live in a cave still.
Right. Yeah. I mean, technology is moving faster than evolution, or, so yeah, we are still, we're only 10,000 years ago, we were cavemen, and that's not a long time for a species to change. I do know this: when I lived in New Mexico, the natives would say that their bodies can't handle alcohol the way Europeans did, and that's why, like, there's a lot of dry reservations, and you can't bring alcohol to the reservations because the American Indians, like, they can't process it. There's a lot of alcoholism, so they'll tell you that their bodies are different. So I can't argue with your theory. If they say it's different, then it's different. They admit it's different. I like what Wade is doing with DC, but what matters is sometimes they were. Yeah, that's one of my biggest problems with DC. Okay, I'm totally into this. Oh, they go into the new 52. All right, now I'm getting used to the new 52. Oh, they got rid of the new 52. So it's like nothing matters. Why should I read it? I'm a big fan of continuity. I think our Absolute Man, but I don't think I will like it. I want to make the world a better place, but they make something more convenient, not better. That's a good point. Pregnant Spider-Man. Yeah, there was a black pregnant Spider Woman. I'm surprised they didn't call her Spider-Man. What If went deeper than usually expect? Yeah. Absolute Batman and Superman suck. I wouldn't know. I didn't read them. One advantage was that there could be stakes because no one is indispensable in What If, but the stakes are less about this. Yeah. What If was like an interesting. Things were going to go off the rails. You expected it, and it was like a safe way to do something crazy. And very rarely did they ever come back to it. It was just a good throwaway, fun story, And now it's like every What If is valid, and knock it off. I've been wondering who's the stretchy guy fighting the patriarch. I really like stretching as a power. Oh, I'm just gonna. The stretchy guy fighting the patriarch is Thomas Valiant. That's RJ's character. RJ, the guy here on the fourth age. You want to tell us about Thomas Valiant?
Thomas Valiant was my first character that I came up with, and my first book is of Thomas Valiant #1. We're coming out with Thomas Valiant #2 sometime this summer. We're hoping to. We got Renzo working on the art right now. Basically, I was, I don't know, several years ago, very much trying to deconstruct what the heck they were doing at Marvel and looking at characters like Kamala Khan. And in a dream, I got this character come up and said, I have to actually write a heroic character with these kind of power sets as compared to something like, Kamala Khan that is just destroying comics back, 5-6 years ago and destroying now whatever else they can touch.
Yeah, so Thomas Valiant is RJ's main character. Like he's his flagship character in Thomas Valiant, and Thomas Valiant's your first comic, and then what was the name of the second comic with Thomas Valiant? The
Valiant Heroes.
Valiant Heroes is the name of the team. Forgive me. Yeah, just like the Patriarch is my flagship character, Thomas Valiant. And the funny thing is, Renzo drew both of them. Renzo drew both characters, so I surprised RJ one day when we did our first comic book team up with art. I'm just going to pull us both off the screen so everybody can see this image. You're not going to hear us for a second, and then I'll put you back. I just don't want you to think there was a problem, but I'm just doing this so you can see the background. So yeah, so I did that as a surprise when RJ suggested that we do a comic book team up. We go back and forth, so I'll be on RJ's channel, he'll be on my channel. RJ was helping me out because he has the exponentially bigger channel than me.
You're probably outdoing me a number of videos by now, though, John.
I stream Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, and then Sunday mornings. I try to keep a regular schedule because train people to, this is what John's going to be on. But I've been really bad about getting guests lately. I've just work is overtime lately, and I've been working on my comic. I got like 4 or 5 comics in the making. I've been really having fun writing scripts. I don't, RJ, does this happen to you? I'll bring up your, like, now that I'm writing scripts and I'm comfortable writing scripts, and I think I'm getting better at it, I can't stop coming up with ideas and writing other scripts. Like, I got
Yeah.
scripts, then I have money to be able to make these comics and people willing to work on my comics.
Yeah, I got to step back because I got too many comics on the go right now. Besides the fact that I got to finish Crime the Destroyer, which it's not me. I mean, we're waiting on the spectacular art, but I'm not gonna kick that into high gear because it won't be spectacular. But I got too many pots on the stove right now with the fact that we still got Crime the Destroyer to finish. We're working on Thomas Valley #2. We have Fade to Blue, which we're have the third book almost done now, and we have Artemis, which is the manga style book that we're doing. And it's like, that's enough. I still want to write more stories, and I keep popping into my head. It's like, stop. You got to stop and finish.
Right, right. I have Heroic Tales being worked on. I got the script for the Patriarch #1. That's going to be my next crowd fund. I have Eddie is Doomed being worked on, but Eddie is Doomed is like Oscar, who's in the chat, is working on that, and then Tonic Ball is drawing. But Tonic Ball, I understand his comics get precedent, so whenever he's got a lull, he works on Eddie is Doomed. So that's going slow. But I also have DC Miller's doing a Bikini Girl story, who's like a comic book character within the world of the Patriarch. She's a character that the Patriarch read when he was a kid. So this is a fun way of doing like a Golden Age goofy story. I got Stippling Vaughn doing the Printer's Devil, which is set in Revolutionary War America time. So I got all these stories. Luke Stone is drawing the Sleeper Agent, which is set in the present day Heroic Tales world, but deals with dreams and other planes of reality. So I got, and just today, I have I was telling people that Science City, the setting for Heroic Tales, I picked this particular spot because when I was out in Arizona, there was a ghost town, and the ghost town had some interesting stories. So there's nothing there right now. So I'm like, what if we built Science City right here, and they used all the solar panels and everything like that to make the city of the future. So I have a Western story set in that ghost town, why it became a ghost town, things like that. But I couldn't make it work. And now all of a sudden, just at work yesterday, I'm like, this is the missing element. So I'm now writing that script. I just can't stop. Please, guys, please buy my books so I could write all these scripts and turn them into glorious, glorious comic books. I can't keep laying out the money for every issue. Where is Guapo's talking about his Irish family. I hate that there's so many of the same character, like 8 Spider, 4 Thors, 4 Hulks. Yeah, it dilutes the character, if you ask me.
Honestly, in my I think you're probably going to say the same thing as I am, John. But in my world, this is one of the things I've never touched on before, never even talked about it before. But in my world, there's no passing down of powers, and there's no similarity of powers. It's like there's a character, and let's say the character has a son, and the son also has powers. But if they're not going to be passed down from father to son, it's like he might have powers that are similar in usage to his father. He uses them in the same way because that's the way his father used powers or power, but they're not going to be the same power. You know what I mean?
Right. Marcus is drawing my Public Eye story. It's an homage to all the fedora wearing Steve Ditko detective characters, who's just Public Eye's just out of his mind. It's great. I love writing him. He's probably my favorite character to write. Yeah. In my world too, that's actually going to be a bone of contention. The Patriarch has 7 children, and one of them wears a cape and runs around. He just can't wait for his powers to kick in, but it's never going to happen. The powers aren't genetically based. There's a process to get superpowers, and the government keeps that process a secret because. Do you think if you could get bitten by a spider and get spider powers, that the government wouldn't be like forcing people to get bit by spiders to see what would happen? Oh, this guy got cancer and died. This guy got spider powers. This guy's really powerful, but he turned into a villain. You know what I mean? Or the Soviet Union or China would be pumping out Spider-Man. So in my world, you can't. It's not genetically. It's not a genetic trait to get superpowers. You get them, and you could impregnate a million women and have a million babies. None of them are going to have powers because you had powers. Uh, but the government also masks how you got powers and creates false origins. So the patriarch has two origins. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't tell his origin in his first appearance, because it involves too much of my world. And I don't think people would care, people wouldn't appreciate it, and I would have to tone it down. So now in Patriarch number one, since it's its own comic, I could expand and tell his origin the way I've always envisioned it. Now,
I like Tony's comment here. He says, too many members of the Batman family, which
absolutely.
I have a character that Renzo wanted to work on, which was the Kit Fox, which is kind of a takeoff of the amalgam of Batman and Wolverine. But he has a whole bunch of followers, which are called the Jays, which are a takeoff of the Robins. But each one of them, if you get the cards for the Valiant Heroes, I can't remember which campaign it was, but if you get the cards for the Jays, you notice that each one of them has to have a specific field of attack or defense that's different from everybody else. It's like you can't be the exact same character. You can't try to be the exact same. You'll get kicked off the team. You got to, one of them's proficient in acrobatics, another one's weapons expert.
Okay.
Things like that. Because they're non-powered individuals. They have to have a specialty in order to be on the team.
Thank you, OmniPro. He likes my Sunday comics. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I do Sunday comics. I think it's really going to be interesting because I'm going to start with giant-sized X-Men and just every Sunday do another comic until John Byrne leaves the X-Men. So we'll start with the Dave Cockrum, and we'll work up to when John Byrne leaves the X-Men. So that'll probably take a year. It's got to be 50 issues. I don't even know. We got Matt Barr. How you doing? Matt is always welcome to do a page in my comic. Every issue, Matt Barr will have a page. Everybody is Captain America. Oh my God, was that? Do you know what Yang is talking about?
I'm not entirely sure, but I know they did a couple of years ago. They did a Captain America where they had all the Captain Americas in it. Even the new one with the garbage can shield is like ridiculous.
Yeah. If everybody's Captain America, then nobody's Captain America. To paraphrase the Incredibles, one of the best superhero movies ever made. I kind of have a problem with legacy characters. Like in my comic book world, if the patriarch dies, he's done. Like unless I set up like an obvious person to take his name, it ain't gonna happen. You know what I mean? Like it's not just a mental. Like Babe Ruth was Babe Ruth. When Babe Ruth died, another baseball player didn't say, "I'm Babe Ruth now." Like he may said, I'm going to break his record and stuff like that. But like, if you're Spider-Man and Spider-Man dies, that should be the end of Spider-Man. But I understand it's a moneymaker and it's a business decision. But it's like if the patriarch dies, or I'm trying to think like Mary Sue, it's not a mental. That's Mary Sue. When she's gone, there is no more Mary Sue. That drives me nuts.
I'll drop another bomb on people here because I don't care. We're on live stream. I'll give a little backstory which might change, but if you look at my character, Blue Skies, right? He's basically the superhero or Superman stand-in, because I basically said to myself, I'm going to take Amalgam Comics from like 1996 and say, what happened if that world didn't cease to exist, was slightly different, but didn't cease to exist. And so you get this world, my world, off of that. And that's where the original idea came from. And then it got a little flushed out. But my thought for Blue Skies was, okay, let's say his father was a Superman character. And then what happened in around 1996 was the fact that he got turned into energy and he had a kid while he was that energy character. And that became his kid's powers because he got turned back into Superman, right? It's like, there you go. It's like the kid doesn't have the same powers as his father.
Okay. That's kind of cool. Eric Guapo's asking, what's the process? I assume you asked about what's the process to become a superhero by comics. That's what Heroic Tales #2, the Mary Sue story, is about. It's in there. But the point of Spider-Man is that anybody can if anybody could become Spider-Man, then what's the point of Spider-Man? You know, the thing about Spider-Man is he's unique and that he's a good guy and he overcame this greediness. Like I'm sorry, but I do believe that if the average person got superpowers, we would have more villains than superheroes by a factor of 100.
The
Because
really funny thing about this exact thing, John, is right now where you got Marvel, especially in the movies and the television, it's trying to pass down these powers and legacy characters. But the real inception of the MCU was the first Captain America movie. And the whole point of that was you had two different individuals having the same serum, and they turned out radically different because you got the Red Skull and you got Captain America, right? That was the entire basis of the entire, like, that's where the MCU started. You can give them the exact same powers, they're not going to turn out the same, not even close. It's who they are.
yeah, I'll never forgive Marvel for making Captain America. Yeah, I don't think they recovered. Yeah, and I like the fact that all the superheroes are unique. Like it's supposed to be like lightning in a bottle. Each superhero is lightning in a bottle. I'm thinking like, okay, let's go to Star Wars. Everybody knows like some people are born force sensitive or whatever. Now I think if there really was a force and then like people trained, I think like the Jedi's would keep it under control. They wouldn't want people to train because I think if I was in charge of Star Wars, you know, from day one, I was George Lucas, and I would make it so that the Sith outnumber the Jedi's by 100 to 1 because the dark side should be easier and it should be more seductive, and it's the lazy way to do it. Like, let's face it, not everybody is a great artist. You know, nowadays that we have AI, how many people are going to make AI comics, and how many people are going to use AI writing and stuff because it's easy? You know, great writers, great artists are far and few between because it's a rare talent. How many people, how many Jimi Hendrixes are there? So all of these kids who wanted to become Jimi Hendrix, all these kids who wanted to become Jedi, they start out with great intentions, and then they take shortcuts and they become corrupt and they become Siths. And I think that's the way it would be in the real world if there really was superpowers. And because of that, because of human nature, I think the government would clamp down on people becoming super beings. You know, and that's where I arrived in my world. And yeah, you didn't get all of that because I only have one comic out, but you'll see, and especially in Patriarch #1, I'm really going to be able to dive into some backstory now that people got 2 issues of my comic.
Connect that idea for you, John, about especially about writers. I remember trying to be, trying to write stories back in the 1990s. They always threw out to you the very depressing fact that there are more successful brain surgeons than there are successful writers.
I guess because brain surgery is like a precise, you got to do the X, Y, and Z, whereas writing is, we don't know what makes it a successful story. You know what I mean? It's a art rather than a science, and arts. I don't know. That's a good point. Now you're making me pontificate, and I stopped talking because I don't know if I'm contradicting myself. Yeah, why not be a superhero but a unique hero? Why? The easy answer is Ludiverse is I can make my paraplegic gay Spider-Man character, and it immediately starts at level 6 instead of level 0 because it's borrowing from the Superman name. It's borrowing the Spider-Man name. It's borrowing from the Spider-Man shadow and legacy. So immediately it's elevated to here. Just like, I hate to say it, but like Tony Curtis was a good actor, and then his son Michael Douglas, or Kirk Douglas rather, Kirk Douglas was an actor. His son Michael Douglas, when he went to jobs, he was already had one foot in the door because of his father. That's what they're doing with all of these Spider-Verse characters and Captain America is from all over they're just borrowing the name, because it's lazy. Thomas Valiant is his own character. RJ has to start from scratch and get you people interested in this character. That's why when I see all these derivative characters, I'm just like, you're not a good writer. You're not a good writer. You're stealing the work from somebody else.
The hardest thing I think about being a writer is you have your ideas and then you have what the audience likes. And your main character that you want to write may not end up being your main character that everybody wants you to write. but I would love to write Thomas Valiant forever, but it may be that one of those side characters is going to take off a lot more than Thomas Valiant, and that will become my main character. But again, that's not what writers for mainstream do right now. They got an agenda and they got something they want to tell. They don't want to follow what your audience wants and where the story should go.
You're absolutely right. That's what I'm doing, because my vision of Heroic Tales was every issue was going to have a different superheroes, because I can't do a monthly comic. So this was my way of getting all of these ideas out to you. And then people are like, what do you mean issue number 2 is not going to have the Patriarch? Issue number 2 was going to be the Raven and Mary Sue. And people are like, but I like the Patriarch. And I'm like, I got to listen to the fans. They like the Patriarch. I got to give them. So my solution was, I'm going to give the Patriarch his own comic. He's my flagship character now, because that's what people who buy my comics want. And, I opened up a hot dog stand. I got to keep selling the hot dogs. I can't just all of a sudden turn sushi and then also, but I came here for the hot dogs. You know what I mean? It is. I have to give the fans what they want. In my world, when 2 heroes have the same power, they have other weapons or powers. Yeah, like in the Heroic Tales, there's going to be 2 guys that are super strong. You know what I mean? But they're going to have different motifs, different costumes, different philosophies, attitudes. You know what I mean? Like there could be 2 guys with flame powers, but one could be a good guy, one could be a bad guy, but they're not going to be, I'm Human Torch, I'm also Human Torch. I hate that. You got to come up with, to the point where I was thinking of writing a story somewhere down the line where somebody else puts on a costume and calls himself the Patriarch and doesn't realize that there isn't a Patriarch. He just, and then like the Patriarch's like, dude, you can't take this name. I'm the Patriarch. You got to change your name. What did you think of Netflix Jupiter's Legacy? Is there any similarity between Jupiter and... I didn't read it yet. I'm reading... I have a big stack of Mark Millar comics, so I didn't see the show yet. Matter of fact, they're right here, because Mark Millar said he wants to come back on my channel, so I'm trying to read and catch up to all... I'm so glad that he didn't ask me any questions about his comics last time he was on, because I only read the Kick-Ass. I have literally a big stack of his comics, and I haven't read them yet. That spider could have bitten anyone. There's no such thing as Providence. Yep. Yeah. Can you imagine if it bit Flash Thompson? They tried to go to the root of the Jedi, trying to control the Force-sensitive in the prequels. Okay. Pre-Darth Blaine, the rule of 2 didn't exist. There was many Sith. They fought slowly. Yeah, well, they're evil, right? Like, it makes... Wouldn't it be more sense? Like, supervillains are constantly attacking each other. In Count of Duty, it takes a lot more effort and sacrifice to be a Sith than a Jedi. The Inquisitor, on the other hand, if it's not in the movies, I don't know. Gravitas, the evil superhero, uses power to steal respect and intimidate his foes. Check out Heroic Tales. Patriarch 3 will have my villain named Gravitas. That's how I feel about Milestone. I still like them, but most of these characters are just black versions of an already established character. Yeah, I get that. And that's why I didn't get Milestone at first. I was just like, it's just the black version of Superman, the black version of... But it turned out they were pretty good comics. What about the Silver Age DC Flash? Yeah, I liked, Alan Scott, Green Lantern, and then Hal Jordan. They would... I understand. It happened organically. It wasn't planned. They made the original Golden Age versions of all these super characters, and then the market crashed and they put them away. They didn't force you guys to read them and keep... I like them. I want to keep putting... They went away. And then when they came back, they were like, it's a different age, so we're going to bring these characters back, but for the modern audience. Which is kind of funny, because now when we hear for the modern audience, we run screaming. But they made real cool characters based on them, and it worked. Now, I don't know. Should they have kept on doing that? Like, made Bronze Age all new characters? I don't know. That's a funny thing to think about. I never thought of that before. Can you imagine, like, Earth 3 with Bronze Age, different versions of Hal Jordan? Pulse is cool. There you go. You got a fan for Pulse, RJ.
Thank you very much, Zach Dan.
I'm sorry?
I was saying thank you very much, Zach Dan.
Yeah, RJ, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, RJ has a character called Pulse, who's probably one... I think he's my favorite character, too. You gave him some funny lines that were genuinely funny.
I think I got to bounce, John, because my stream was supposed to start 3 minutes ago, but
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got to go to bed. You got us talking, and I lose track of time. Okay, so you're gonna bounce. I'm just gonna address the chat, and then I'm gonna bounce too. I gotta go have
all
dinner.
right.
One fire,
All right,
guys.
good. I'll see everybody either over my channel or in 2 weeks.
Go over to RJ from the Fourth Age. He normally streams, and I go to bed at this time. So I'm just gonna finish up these questions, and then I'm gonna go. I didn't realize the time. I'm sorry, RJ. One fire guy is angry. Another liar. Another flamboyant. Yeah, you go, Jedi scum. Hope everyone's doing fantastic. Best to all your families. Hey, Logic, how you doing? Static Shock was the only milestone character I like, a bit because of the show, but yeah, they ruined his character. Yeah, they changed everything. They changed what people liked about him. Like and share. Comic book history question: were the ages official? Was only looking back? I I think looking back, I think the Golden Age and the Silver Age there was like a logical break. You know, when they brought back the Golden Age characters was the official beginning of the Silver Age. I don't think anybody contests that, but there's really like, when did the Bronze Age start? Did the Bronze Age start with Fantastic Four in 1962, or did the Bronze Age start, in the 70s? That is the blurry line. And then when did the Bronze Age end? The bronze, did, is it 20 years for all these ages? And then what is the name after the Bronze Age? That's where it all kind of breaks down. Sneaky chat, you got them dialoguing. Yep, the Bronze Age is the 70s. So okay, I'm all caught up. So I'm gonna stop now. I didn't realize it was 9:45, and then I also don't like seeing myself on the big screen like this. So tomorrow I have nothing, so I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know if I'm gonna stream, but I got nothing scheduled. So maybe I don't know. Maybe I'll pop up with a surprise. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I know at 9 o'clock tomorrow I was invited on Vaughn Coleman's channel to talk about the Hulk Peter David comics, Hulk the End. And then Friday, I don't have anything scheduled for 7 p.m., but I have comic book team. I have it's clobbering time. We're gonna do the Silver Surfer versus Captain Atom, and then Sunday comics. I'm gonna start with Giant Size X-Men #1, and then we'll do like the new X-Men until either I think of something else or we get tired of it or I finish. No, my wife never wants to be on the stream. She does. She's like, you guys are nasty, and she doesn't want to be on. She's incredibly introverted. I just clicked on a comment and it disappeared. I consider the Bronze Age beginning with the end of DC's Crisis reboot. So you think the Silver Age? Yeah, that's okay. I'll buy that. So the Silver Age was like the Flash of Two Worlds. Or okay, I'll buy that. Yeah, the Bronze Age was the end of the Crisis. Okay, I'll buy that. Okay. Bronze Age when DC Marvel stepped away from their house style. Okay, I'll buy that too. These are good. Oh, I can hang out. Yeah, we do. Saturday, I might be working overtime at work, and if I'm not working overtime at work, my friend Jimmy's coming over, and we're gonna play some Villains and Vigilantes. Jimmy has a character that is just the most fun, insane character of all time. I'm not going to talk about him yet because he will be showing up in Heroic Tales. Heroic Tales. Well, okay. So Heroic Tales 2 is already mostly done. It just needs to be colored. Daniel's father is in the hospital. I think he's getting a pacemaker. So Renzo's just finishing up the pages. Then Daniel will color them all, and then lettering takes like a week. So well, that's what's going on there. We're still ahead of schedule. That two-story Subterranean Homesick Blues. It's the patriarch goes beneath Science City to deal with the child that got abducted. Mary Sue, the origin of Mary Sue, and an explanation of where superpowers come from in my world. And then I'm going to do Patriarch #1, which will be the origin of the Patriarch. Heroic Tales 3 will be the continuation of Mary Sue, and then the introduction of the Raven. And I have to do those stories in order. And then Patriarch #2 will be the Raven meeting Patriarch for the first time. So that'll be like the Superman-Batman fight that always seems to happen. And that'll explain a lot of stuff in the comic. And then Heroic Tales Patriarch 3, Patriarch's on a super team. He kind of mentioned it, like, but he's like a reserve member of the Meta League, and it'll be him like going to the Meta League headquarters, and then you'll see a whole bunch of superheroes that some of them you've seen in the cards and stuff like that, and that'll be a full-on superhero team versus a super villain team. I can't wait. That's gonna be so much fun. That's gonna be so much fun. It's a full-on old school team of superheroes fighting a full-on old school team of supervillains. That's gonna be so much fun. Wow, a whole bunch of comments. A River Dirty shirt. Bronze Age and okay, we saw that. I meant off stream. Okay, Conan #1 is the beginning of the Bronze Age. Okay, see, the Bronze Age is where we start to have problems. I'm not nasty. I'm adorable. I never said you were nasty. Can you explain to me the difference between Bronze, Silver, and Golden Ages of comics? Well, the Golden Age of comics was, pretty much the beginning of comics till I don't know. Some people say like 1956. I don't know, but like to me, I say that it's like when they rebooted the DC heroes. So when they did the new Green Lantern #1, the new Flash #1, that's so from like Superman #1 to the Hal Jordan. That's Golden Age. Then the Silver Age was the new DC versions, the Earth One characters, until I don't know. Some people say all the way up to Crisis on Infinite Earth, so like up to like 1985. Some people say like Conan #1. Some people say Fantastic Four #1. That's that's the problem. Is it's not set in stone. These ages are kind of there's a little bit of overlay. So and then what's after the Golden Age? Do we say the Iron Age, the modern? It can't be the modern age, but I think what you need is like time needs to pass before we could look into the definitive version. Like because like I don't know, but we all agree that there's a Golden Age. We all agree that there's a Silver Age. Where the Silver Age ends and the Bronze Age, that's where the problems begin. And then what's after the Bronze Age? What do we call it? Uh, you know, the people say like the brass age, the tin age, the iron age. I don't know. Rating it to RJ Streep. Go ahead, go. Yeah, I'm Eric DeGuapo's exception that proves the rule. Flash in particular is the beginning of the Silver Age. My opinion, Barry brought in the Silver. Yeah, I agree too. Some people say the death of Gwen Stacy brought in the Bronze Age. Yeah, when comics started being less silly. After the Bronze Age, I just call it the 90s. Yeah, the Extreme Age, the Image Age. The Golden is the 30s and 40s. Silver is the 50s, 60s. The Bronze is 70s. The Copper Age. Okay. I don't know. I got to do more research. See what every time I ask this question, I get a million different answers. But I'm getting real sleepy and I'm babbling and I talk too much. So I'm going to shut it down now. Thanks a lot, guys. I enjoy this. I don't know if I'm going to stream tomorrow. I don't have a guest, so maybe I'll just pop on and I don't know. Who knows? See ya. Bye bye.